Tonight we will sail very slowly with the setting sun, down into a place the ancient Egyptians imagined every single night, a place of darkness and rest and quiet renewal. As the sun sank below the western horizon, they believed it did not simply vanish. They believed the sun god Ra stepped aboard a great golden boat and sailed down into the Duat, the vast underworld of night, to travel through 12 dark and silent hours before rising again, renewed in the east at dawn. This was not to them a journey of fear. It was a journey of rest, the same journey the sun made faithfully every night, and the same journey each of us makes in our own quiet way when we finally close our eyes and let the day go. So let the old story carry you gently downward now, the way the evening light softens and lowers over still water. You do not need to remember any names. You do not need to follow every turn of the river. Simply let yourself sail, slowly and safely, into the deepening dark, as the sun begins its long and peaceful voyage through the night. As the last of the daylight faded from the world above, Ra's golden barque reached the first gate of the Duat. The Egyptians pictured the underworld as a long, winding river flowing through 12 regions, one for each hour of the night, and each region was sealed by a great gate. The first gate opened slowly and silently, and the barque slipped through into the quiet dark beyond. Here, the air was cool and still, and the water lay smooth as polished glass, reflecting the soft glow of the sun disk that Ra carried with him. Along the banks, ancient statues and carved stone walls rose out of the mist, lit here and there by the gentle flicker of distant torches. There was no rush in this place, and no sound but the faint lapping of water against the hull. The barque moved forward on its own, slowly and surely, guided by an old and patient current. And as it carried the sleeping sun deeper into the night, a deep calm settled over everything, the kind of calm you feel when a long day is finally, gently, coming to its end. Ra did not make this journey alone. All through the long night, a small company of gods sailed with him, keeping the barque steady and its passage safe. At the prow stood a watchful guardian, eyes turned toward the darkness ahead, quiet and unafraid. Nearby, the wise god Thoth, keeper of knowledge, marked the passing of each hour, and gentle Maat, the goddess of balance and truth, kept everything in its proper order, so that the night could unfold exactly as it should. The crew guided the great boat softly through each region, speaking the old words that opened each gate in turn. There was something deeply reassuring in this quiet company, this sense that the sleeping sun was watched over and cared for by steady, familiar hands. You need do nothing at all tonight but rest, the way Ra rested as he sailed, carried safely by others through the dark. Let that same feeling settle over you now, the feeling of being gently watched over, of being carried, of having nowhere to go and nothing to do but drift, slowly and safely, onward through the peaceful night. As the barque sailed deeper, it passed through wide, quiet regions where the blessed dead made their home. The Egyptians called these the fields of the Duat, and imagined them as peaceful countryside, gentle fields, and still canals glowing faintly in the dark. Here dwelt the souls of those who had lived good and honest lives, resting now in a calm and endless evening. As Ra's golden light drifted slowly over them, they stirred softly, lifting their faces to the warmth the way flowers turn toward a gentle sun. For this was the great gift the sleeping sun brought each night to the underworld, a single passing hour of light and warmth in the long dark, a reminder that morning would always eventually come. The souls did not reach or grasp or hurry. They simply rested and received the light and let it pass. And as the barque glided on and the glow slowly faded behind it, they settled back into their peaceful rest, content, unhurried, at ease. Let yourself receive this quiet moment too, this soft passing warmth, and then let it go and settle deeper into rest. Deeper still, the river of night flowed into the oldest and stillest waters of all, the dark primordial waters the Egyptians called Nun. These were the waters from which all things had first arisen, long before the world began, and they lay now in perfect, unbroken stillness beneath the underworld. Here the barque seemed almost to float upon a mirror, the dark surface so smooth it was hard to tell water from sky. Faint points of light drifted in the deep like distant stars, and everything was hushed and slow and endlessly calm. This was the deep middle of the night, the quietest hour of the whole journey, when even the underworld itself seemed to hold its breath and rest. There was nothing here to fear and nothing here to do, only a vast and gentle stillness, stretching out in every direction. Feel that stillness now, settling into your own body, softening your shoulders, slowing your breath. Let yourself sink into it. The way the barque sank softly through those ancient waters, held and cradled by a stillness older than the world itself. Now, in the depths of the night, the barque approached the one true test of its long journey. The Egyptians told of a great serpent named Apophis, a creature of chaos and darkness who lay coiled across the river of night, hoping to halt the sun and keep the morning from ever coming. But Ra was never left undefended. The guardians of the barque were ready, and as the serpent stirred, they held it fast, wrapping it in coils of their own, binding it gently but firmly so that it could not block the way. There was no cruelty in this, only the quiet, steady keeping of order, the same order that turns night into day without fail. Slowly, the great serpent grew still, and the danger passed, and the river lay open once more. The barque sailed calmly onward, and the deep peace of the night returned, unbroken. Even here, in the darkest hour, the old story tells us, order holds, and the light is kept safe. And the journey continues. So let any last trace of worry be bound gently and set aside, and let the calm return and carry you onward. At the deepest point of the night, the barque came to the most sacred place in all the Duat, the still and shadowed hall of Osiris, the lord of the Underworld. Osiris sat quietly upon his throne, patient and unmoving, watching over the realm of the resting dead as he had for longer than anyone could remember. And here, in this hushed and holy hour, the old stories tell of a great and quiet mystery. The sleeping sun and the Lord of the dead drew close, and for a single, timeless moment, the two became one. The light of Ra and the stillness of Osiris joined together in the dark. From this quiet union came the power of renewal itself, the deep hidden turning by which the old sun gathered the strength to be born again. No one saw it happen, and no words were spoken. It simply occurred silently in the deepest stillness of the night, the way the most important changes in our own lives often happen quietly while we rest. And from that moment, though the night was not yet over, the long journey had already, secretly, begun to turn toward the dawn. Slowly, so slowly at first that it could barely be felt, the great turning began. In the eastern reaches of the Duat, the Egyptians imagined a small and humble creature waiting, the scarab beetle, which they called Khepri, a symbol of the rising sun and of all things made new. As the barque sailed onward through the final hours, the renewed sun began to take the form of Khepri, gathering its strength for the climb toward the horizon. The darkness, which had been so deep and so complete, began ever so gently to thin. Faint warmth returned to the air. The still waters ahead seemed to catch the very first, faintest hint of coming light, far off at the edge of everything. The barque rose slowly toward that distant glow, patient and unhurried, carrying the sleeping sun up out of the depths of the night. There was no strain in this rising, no struggle, only a quiet, inevitable return, the same quiet return your own body makes each morning, rising gently out of the depths of sleep, renewed, without ever having to try. And at last, at the 12th and final gate, the long journey through the night came softly to its end. The barque reached the eastern horizon, and the great gate opened onto the first pale light of dawn. Ra, renewed and reborn from the deep mystery of the night, rose slowly into the brightening sky, and the darkness of the Duat gently fell away behind him. Below, the great river of Egypt caught the first golden light of morning, and the world above began, quietly, to wake. The long night was over. The sun had made its faithful journey through darkness and stillness and rest, and had come out the other side renewed, exactly as it always did, and exactly as it always would. And so our journey, too, comes gently to its close. There is nothing more you need to do tonight. The sun is safe. The night is calm. The dawn will come on its own without any effort from you at all. So let yourself sink now all the way down into the deep and peaceful waters of your own rest, and sail slowly and safely into sleep.